and you don't want to be like sunk into a seat when you're crawling and all that kind of stuff. So these seats are perfect for, again, the purpose of the truck. Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and in today's video, we'll be reviewing the all-new Chevy Silverado ZR2. First and foremost, though, a huge shout out and thank you to the Larry Miller Chevy here in Provo, Utah for giving me some time with this ZR2. This one is available for sale for the time being, so if you're interested, I'll include a link to their website in the description down below, or you can contact them. On a side note, if you want to save time and money the next time you purchase a car, link to my car buying guide in the description down below. Let's get into it. Under the hood, we have a naturally aspirated 6.2 liter V8 that goes through a 10-speed automatic transmission. Fuel economy is 14 around town and then 17 on the highway, with power outputs being 420 horsepower and then 460 pound-feet of torque. This has an axle ratio of 3.23. Now let's go to the front end of the ZR2. So first off, we have our signature blacked out piece here in the center with the ZR2. This is also something that you can get on the Trail Boss now. We have our 6.2 L badge there off to the side, and then we have the flow tie with the red accenting in the center. And then notice the trim there up above it and below it is kind of darker. We have another ZR2 logo, and then we have the signature headlights here. I love the daytime running light there just down below, looks really cool. And then notice how everything down below is pretty much blacked out. We've got our red tow hooks, and then we do have a bunch of skid plate action underneath, and then we got the fog lights here in this area. And then notice we've got the cutouts here on the bumper to actually help out with approach angle, make it so that you're contacting the tire and not the bumper. Now speaking of well, angles, well, not really angles, but ground clearance, we have 11.3 inches of ground clearance here with the ZR2. Coming around the side here, our tire and wheel setup is 275/70/18 on the front and over in the rear as well. And I love how the wheels are all blacked out here with the ZR2. I think it just perfectly contrasts the blue paint on this particular truck. And by the way, these Wrangler Goodyear tires are just absolutely fantastic. I have them on one of my trucks, and they just get amazing grip off-road and they last a long time. And then here's a quick look at the suspension. We do have independent front suspension. We have shocks from Multimatic. They're the DSS-V shocks. We'll show a better view of those with the rear. And then you've got your little fender flare there, ZR2 badge here on the side. Notice the mirror cap is blacked out. Door handles are also blacked out. And taking a few steps back, this truck has a really good stance to it. So it has a 2-inch lift, just like the Trail Boss. And so it's got this nice level appearance front to rear, and again, just looks really good. Now, going to the rear, this truck still utilizes leaf springs, as you can see. And then here's a better look at the shocks. Those Multimatic shocks there in the rear. It's a multi-chamber system that basically helps out with low speed and high speed compression. And of course, we have our high departure angle exhaust tips and got the spare tire underneath as well. Now here's our key fob. We have our unlock function, our lock function remote start, and then the drop down for the tailgate. Now pressing that a couple times, it'll pop down. We have a payload capacity of 1,428 pounds and then a towing capacity of 8,900 pounds with this specific truck. Notice here with the protection on the tailgate, and then we've got LED lights here in the bed, and we have a full outlet here in the bed as well. And then you guys will probably notice here with the liner, and then of course it says ZR2 there at the end. And then we've got our cargo light and camera there at the top. And other than that, it's a truck bed. And let's see if this has the auto raise. Yeah, look at that. This is the first ZR2 that I've reviewed, I think, that actually has that function. Now finishing things up with the rest of the rear, we've got the Silverado's signature taillights here, another ZR2 badge, Silverado there on the other side, and then you got these cutouts here in the bumper so that you've got steps which help out with accessing it, more parking sensors here on the rear, and then the bumper's all blacked out, and then obviously since you have those high departure angle exhaust tips, they don't pop out the back. Here's the door panel in the rear. Now this has an easy clean interior. That's why you have the textures that you have inside and the colors that you have, including the neon stitching. That's very important. That's just a great contrast. But seriously, this interior was designed to make it so that you could easily wipe off all of these surfaces after some off-road adventures, which me being an off-road enthusiast, I really appreciate. Behind the seat storage, under seat storage as well. And you got this grab handle, which helps out with getting in and out. I'm sure a lot of people will be adding side steps or something to these trucks. It's pretty high up. Anyways, there is your legroom, headroom, and then you got your storage pocket here, a couple of cup holders, heated seats down below with some vents and USB ports, and we have our cup holder armrest. And I will say these seats are actually very nicely padded. Let's head to the front. Here's the front door panel. You can see again with the surfaces just like the rear door panel, easy to wipe everything off. Do have blind spot monitoring for the mirrors, memory seats as well, and then you got all of your window controls. Front two are automatic. The mirrors do power fold in. One of the speakers for the Bose sound system. Then we have our ZR2 logo. And then here's the front seat, and again same thing with the center portion. Even though it's perforated, they still make it so that the perforations are like small enough that stuff's not going to get like caught in there like crazy. And then your adjustments here on the side, pedal layouts down below. We have our light controls right here, and then our drive mode select and our tow haul mode is all in that area. And then for the drive line, you have 4-wheel auto, 2-wheel high, 4-wheel high, and then 4-wheel low, parking brake, and then you got stuff for your heads-up display. Steering wheel's power adjustable. Let's pop in. Now here's the steering wheel for the ZR2. You can see really nice padding all around, and then you got the darker stitching on the center portion. Controls for the center stack, voice command controls. There are radio controls on the back of the steering wheel, and we got these paddle shifters here for that 10-speed automatic. Notice we have our cruise control as well. It does have adaptive cruise control. Turn signal, windshield wiper stock, and there's the steering wheel. So here is the center gauge cluster, full digital gauge cluster. You guys can see stuff like tire pressure information, for example. But yeah, stuff on like the music, navigation, phone settings, all that kind of stuff. Like pretty normal setup that's in most modern vehicles. But my favorite part is the drive modes. So first off, if I put it in the tow haul mode, it shows the Silverado towing, which is pretty fun. Now we do have a few different drive modes. So we have our normal, and then we have our off-road. Now off-road is for high-speed off-roading, and then terrain is for like rock crawling. Notice that it makes us go into 4-wheel high if we want to go into terrain. You can see it gives you that little message right there. But that's kind of like the differentiation, and there's that. Now here's the center infotainment screen. First off, if we pop it into reverse, we do have a backup camera with trajectory lines that turn with the steering wheel. And the ZR2 has an amazing camera system. It's a full 360 system where you can see out of every single angle of the truck. Yeah, this isn't necessarily the best resolution, but at least we can, you know, if there was like a, you know, blob right off here to the side, we'd be like, okay, we don't want to hit that, right? And so yeah, overall, really good camera system. And as for the rest of the infotainment screen, you've got a shortcut bar here on the side. You've got the main screen here with really good response time. Has Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. And then you have this auxiliary screen here off to the side, which my favorite thing is just make it be a clock basically, but there's that. Also another home screen button right there. Now we have a bunch of buttons here to turn on or off different functions. We've got our lane departure, parking sensors, auto stop start, the tailgate drop down and raise up, hazard lights, stability control, hill descent control. Now here's the locker system. So you can turn on the rear locker independently. If you want the front to be locked, the rear also has to be locked. And that's one of the cool things about the ZR2 is that it has front and rear lockers. There's no other truck in this segment that has a front locker. The closest thing is basically Torsen limited slip differentials on the front ends of pickup trucks like the F-150 Raptor, which is technically not in this segment. Anyways, trailer brake control. And then you can see we've got dual zone climate controls. We've got heated and cooled seats. Got some more storage space here. Shifter for that 10-speed automatic. A couple more cup holders. And then here's the center console. And has that same easy clean material. Wireless phone charging pad, and then tons of storage space. And then it's got the double pop-out glove box setup, which is pretty cool. And then you guys can see the material use here on the dash with that neon stitching. And we have the camera mirror. Nice bit of safety tech. Sunroof here at the top, and then we do have a power sliding window as well. So here's our window sticker for this ZR2. You guys can see with the warranty information, 3-year 36,000 mile bumper to bumper, 5-year 60,000 mile on the powertrain. Now you guys can see with the rest of the standard equipment, pretty much everything is standard. The new base MSRP for a ZR2 is $68,400 before destination charge. This one has a couple packages added to it, like the technology package, for example, and like the power sunroof as well. After all options, this ZR2 stickers for $73,740, and it's a pretty big pickup truck. Let's drive it. Well, let's talk about visibility here in the ZR2 before we set off. So here's your visibility over the hood. Hopefully you can see the heads-up display now. And then both of the mirrors. And throughout the rest of the rear. And let's set off. So, setting off here in the ZR2. And it's always an exciting truck to drive because it's unique, right? I know a lot of people are like, oh, it's just a Silverado with a locker thrown on, and it's quite a bit more than that, right? Because of the shocks, because of the whole setup they have with the exhaust tips and everything. I know that it seemed like some people I've seen complain about those exhaust tips, but it's like, okay, this is a purpose-built off-roader. It's funny when manufacturers add things to make a vehicle more practical from an off-road perspective, then people complain that it's more practical from an off-road perspective. It's like, okay, what do you want, folks? But anyways, first off, seat comfort is actually really good in the ZR2. The seats are definitely firmer, but I want that in an off-roader. I've been thinking about this for quite some time actually, because my Jeep Wrangler is the same thing where it has like firmer seats, and it's good for off-roading because it forces you to have like really upright posture, which again makes sense when you are off-roading. And you don't want to be like sunk into a seat when you're crawling and all that kind of stuff. So these seats are perfect for, again, the purpose of the truck. That 6.2 V8 gets up and moves. This doesn't accelerate any differently compared to any other Silverado with a 6.2 V8, frankly. Even though this has pretty beefy tires, acceleration feels, you know, the same. Like, so if you've driven a 6.2 V8, whether it be a High Country, Trail Boss, whatever, this basically is the same. Now the big thing is with the shocks and the damping they provide. Now I did do an off-road review with one of these. Shout out to Jack for lending me his ZR2 for that review. And I can tell you this thing is really good. Basically, to give you guys some perspective, I would say that this has damping that is as good as like a Gen 2 Raptor before Live Valve was released. So, and I guess that'll actually help us sum things up. So who should buy this, right? So first off, this is in a segment pretty much almost all by itself. I'd say the Toyota Tundra TRD Pro is also in this segment as well, but a completely different truck, right? That's a hybrid twin turbo V6, whereas this is a good old naturally aspirated V8, right? So a lot more simplistic. And this also has a front locker, whereas the TRD Pro doesn't. And this has more ground clearance than the TRD Pro as well, and frankly, bigger tires. So again, this is kind of almost like a step above the TRD Pro. But I think the perfect demographic for this is obviously people that love Chevy trucks, and if you want something that's a little bit more off-road capable compared to your Trail Boss, this does that. But if you happen to own a Gen 1 or Gen 2 Raptor non-live valve, this is an obvious successor because this still has leaf springs. Yeah, it doesn't have 35-inch tall tires, but there will be aftermarket support for that in the very near future. I've been talking to some companies, I can't say who, but there are some companies that are going to add that to this. So we will have 35s on the ZR2 in the very near future, okay? And so this basically still gives you a V8 like what you have with your Raptor. It has really good shocks as well that are just as good as your Raptor. That has a front locker, so you can still do tons of crawling. And it's a brand new truck with a warranty, folks, because those Raptors are getting pretty old at this point. And so, yeah, that's kind of, I think that's the group of people that would really benefit by going over to a ZR2 instead of the Gen 3. And this is obviously a lot more attainable than a Gen 3 Raptor, right? Those Gen 3s are going for over $100,000 after market adjustment for the EcoBoost, and then the V8s are going for like $160,000, $170,000. And so, yeah, let me know what you guys think about the ZR2, but I think this, even though it's not a Ford, is the real successor for the Gen 1 Raptor. That's gonna sum things up with our video here on the Silverado ZR2. Again, a huge shout out and thank you to the Larry Schmiller Chevy here in Provo for giving me some time with this truck. Check out the info in the description down below. I'll see ya.